Hello everybody. I think we're all trying to push the boat out in some way. We're all trying to discover new things. I, for one, would get bored if I didn't discover something, even a tiny little thing that was new each day. And I'm guessing why Nick has invited me, but I guess that a certain aspect that I want to get across to you tonight is the way that architecture is actually a free-spirited manifestation. It can be virtual, it can be physical, it can be in a story, it can be in a movie, it can be in a computer game. In actual fact, it's kind of the elephant in the room. It is what you're talking about is a certain kind of framework. Certainly Irving is talking about a framework within which events can happen. And I've spent my life as a teacher and an architect trying to broaden the definition, the understanding of what architecture can be, and trying to move beyond the object of architecture, the styles of architecture, and think about the relationship between experience and action and what a room or a building can do in order to coexist, or perhaps sometimes to provoke those actions. So I've freely played with ideas and sometimes fictions, or what I call narratives, about buildings or cities or rooms. And one of the, there are many, many of them that I've attempted. Some of them have got built, and some of them exist purely in writing and in books. And one of these, let's say, experimental forms of architecture is a concept of mine called ecstasy, which has manifested itself variously as 2 or 3 exhibitions and a book and even a guide to this place, which, like a time-out guide to London or New York, is a physical object, but that physical object can be explored, is intended to be explored, as though ecstasy was a real place. There's no reason why that book shouldn't be just as real as the time-out guide to London. And I think that's a kind of interesting and duplicitous way of exploring this kind of bizarre relationship between the fictional place and the real place that we are all familiar with to a certain extent. We're all familiar with, to some extent, with places around the world that we've never been to. I was familiar with Tokyo before I went there, or familiar with New York. And these are kind of virtual manifestations that I explored, say, in an image like this in the book, where we are on a plane going to Ecstasy, and we're playing on the web and trying to find out information about this place in order that we might be able to use it better. The sites to visit, the restaurants to eat in, the hotel you've chosen to stay in. These sorts of things are, in a sense, virtual because you're speculating normally on a real world that you haven't yet accessed. This place, Ecstasy, is a combination of 7 cities around the world. Cities I liked, or cities I thought had an ecstatic quality. Cities that actually push the boat out in a way that I've talked about before. And this map is, in a sense, the key to this idea. I've used pieces of maps from different cities that you might recognize. You might recognize the grid of Manhattan, and even the graphic style in which the Manhattan map is presented is sort of indicative of that city. Or you'll recognize the A to Z style graphics on the left with the A to Z map. So we've got New York and London. At the bottom is Rio de Janeiro. We also have Rome, Cairo, Bombay, or Mumbai, and Tokyo, blended, or parts of these cities pulled together and, as it were, linked up as though they were one continuous place. And I admit that it's a kind of rich urban meal that wouldn't it be wonderful if kind of thing. And there's also a tube map for this place. So you could move, as we do in London, or certainly when you first come to London, you disappear into the tube and you come up in a completely different place and have no idea how these spaces are linked. So there's a kind of virtual dimension even in that. But in Exeter City, you could go into the tube in Harajuku and come up in the Vatican. So it was a really different kind of place. So Exeter City, in a sense, is my kind of tabula, my codex for which I've done a lot of other work. It also had reflected and included lots of my own build projects. It assembled all sorts of ideas, both about imaginary architecture and architecture that I had built. But I also like to tell you about some work that is done at the Royal College of Art in the architecture department, which somehow plays with this kind of status of architecture, the narrative status, where students that study architecture, of course, don't go and build something for their exams. They make models, or they do drawings, and increasingly make 3D models and translate them into rapid prototypes. We were invited as a department to exhibit in the Venice Biennale in 2006, and I curated 16 projects from various recent graduates that had been to our small department, and this is one of them. This is a project which tries to level the differences between city boys and the people who clean at night and the taxi drivers in the City of London, where, of course, the city boys and city girls make tons of money, let's say, but the taxi drivers and the cleaners make much less money. So this is a sauna, a very complicated, three-dimensional, labyrinthine sauna for all these people, which kind of eliminates the differences because they all take their clothes off. But think about the fact that this architectural proposition might seem weird, strange, ridiculous. It's not meant to be real. It's meant to make you think about the proposition that is underlying it. It doesn't necessarily have to be this shape. But as a designer, the student has chosen to use this language of the pyramid, this kind of stepping, which he used as a device to try to make this space more labyrinthine, more complex, more stimulating. But of course, when we see this model in an exhibition, in a gallery, we can't be in the space really. We have to pretend. We have to project ourselves into this space in order to get into the message of